Welcome to Chapter 1, Introduction and Sources of Real Estate Law. So your book has, figure 1.1 has this great pyramid showing the different sources of real estate law. So we're going to go through each of these starting at the bottom. So you'll see that the United States Constitution is at the base of the pyramid because it is the basis for all other laws. And these laws are very general and provide legal constraints within which other laws must fall. So we have 3 examples that pertain to real estate. And the first one we're going to talk about is the 4th Amendment. And I guess we don't really think about this one in terms of the practice of real estate, but it does involve our domain, and that is that there cannot be unlawful searches on our residence. So in other words, the law enforcement must have probable cause for entering our home, and they must have a search warrant in order to just enter our home without our permission to search through our home. The 5th Amendment, eminent domain, we typically think of eminent domain of when the government may come in and seize our property for the greater good. So maybe they need to put a road through the area, they want to put a toll road in, they want to build a city park, and eminent domain says that they must fairly compensate us for our property. Your book has some other examples of eminent domain. One is that mortgage foreclosures, there must be a due process, and that we must be able to do e-signing on those. They can't just come in and foreclose on our property without giving us time to satisfy our debt on that. Another a good example of the 5th Amendment and eminent domain is actually a case that's discussed in Chapter 3. But it's very interesting. In this particular case, a farmer had a family farm, and the chickens were being killed and having nervous breakdowns because of the noisy Air Force jets that were landing near the family farm. And they were actually entitled to compensation for a taking of their land because of the situation that they were just too close to that Air Force base. So the government actually compensated them to move their farm. The 14th Amendment is very similar language to the 5th Amendment, but this one includes a equal protection clause. And what that means is that that's where steering, which you hopefully know about by now, is discussed. So brokers and agents can't control the composition of a neighborhood by steering potential buyers to prevent a certain makeup or to prevent a certain demographic makeup of a neighborhood from either developing or disintegrating. Another example that has been more recent are issues with group homes for maybe the mentally challenged people, and also group homes for maybe AIDS patients. So that's where the prohibitions on those and the equal protection challenges are found. The next step up in our pyramid are federal legislative enactments. So on our federal legislative enactments, these are going to be laws that are passed by Congress, and they're found in the United States Code. So probably the most famous one in the practice of real estate is going to be the Dodd-Frank Financial Act, Reform Act. And this is where all federal financing agencies are established and provide rules and regulations for loans, contracts, assumptions, secondary sales, etc. And these include the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Federal Reserve. Probably the most popular that you may be able to relate to some of these acts are the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act. And this is where special paperwork is required in the event a mortgage with an active enlisted person or people in order to delay the foreclosure of a property if those soldiers are overseas, they're outside the country. A good example was during the war in Iraq. There were a lot of soldiers, a lot of homeowners that were not here and able to pay their mortgage, and so they were able to file for a delay in that. Another good example is that the National Guard members who were called into active service, which resulted in a huge pay cut for some of them. So they did not have the means to pay that mortgage. They were also protected under the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Act. The National Environmental Policy Act provides for maintenance and protection of environment, and also imposes restrictions on use. And post 2008, the market collapse resulted in the American Recovery and Investment Act with mortgage relief as well. So next in our pyramid is going to be federal administrative regulations. So under federal administrative regulations, this is where federal agencies are created by Congress to enforce the statutes of the USC and to promulgate their own regulations on the topics covered in the statutes and how these will provide the details needed for compliance with the law. For example, forms for securities registration and property reports under the Interstate Land Sale Full Disclosure Act. Let's see, we've got the CFBP as an example, and this is the CFBP. These are a lot of this came about after the 2008 mortgage crisis. You'll be very familiar with that by the time you're done with this course. And then we have EPA regulations, we have HUD regulations, we have FHA, we have Department of Energy, Interior Department. So there are Code of Federal Regulations. So there are a lot of codes that you're going to learn about under the administration regulation. I think the biggest ones for you are going to be the ones that involve mortgage. The good thing is that our mortgage people keep up with those. We just need to know the basics, and they keep up with the details on those for us, because some of that stuff changes very often and very rapidly. So next in our pyramid is going to be state constitutions and state legislative enactments. So state constitutions will provide provisions similar to the U.S. Constitution, but these will be organized by the state government. Usually it's going to be very detailed down to property issues. They'll also contain specifics about real estate transactions. So, for example, you know that this is where TREC and the Texas Real Estate Commission and the Texas Association of Realtors come in. You know, TREC promulgates our contracts, And so that's where those things are going to fall in. So you'll Texas has a section provided for homestead exemption, which is going to be under the state constitution. The state legislation will be things regarding like our real estate licensing, our insurance laws, our contract laws, water rights, lien laws, will, trust, and probate, deed, and recording. So that's where you're going to, what you're going to find under your state legislative enactments. Now you say it 3 times. Okay, we're climbing to the top quickly. Next is going to be state administrative regulations. And I think I got ahead on this one because I just discussed these. This is the state is going to discuss your licensing. But then you have your county, city, and borough ordinances. These are going to be passed by your local city, county, or borough. And this is where you're going to find your zoning, your construction and inspection permits, curfews, parking limitations, parks, building and construction codes. Private law. Our private law are going to be created by individuals to control their relations. So in other words, our contract terms. Areas of private law will include landlord-tenant, such as pool use, cleaning deposit, noise regulations, and other lease terms. Another area of private law would be deed restrictions, so such as square feet minimums, architectural controls, parking restrictions, limitations on pets, or homeowner associations, which may have laws regarding rights of use, association fees, and liabilities. Transfer restrictions. Some homeowners associations do have transfer restrictions. Age zoning and restrictions, for example, an over 55 community, and then private landowner rights, such as public records. Paint colors would fall under our homeowner association rules, where you can't paint your house pink, can't have little pink houses. And private law was at the top of our pyramid. So we'll just wrap this chapter up with some brief notes about court decisions. And the court comes in and makes an interpretation of the laws as necessary. For example, if a city ordinance prohibits the use of any vehicle in any form in a city park, they need to determine, does the ordinance apply to a bicycle? No. A child's tricycle? No. A car? Yes. So they need to go in and interpret what the statutes mean. And this is where the language of the law is examined. Legislative intent is examined. Law is applied in each case. Court cases are reported and published. And cases, you're going to find cases all throughout your text. And read those. There's a wealth of knowledge in there. My first 2 years in real estate, when I wanted to learn everything I could, I read the cases that Trek would publish, because I wanted to learn from somebody else's mistake. And there are some things that are going to come up that you would never in a million years think of until they happen. And there's no way for me to teach you in a quick 3 weeks of everything that could possibly happen. So read your cases, and when Trek puts out that newsletter and where they talk about what people were what they got in trouble for, read those, learn, so that you don't have to go through the pain um, to learn these things. So that concludes chapter 1, and you should have learned our 3 learning objectives that we discussed about 15 minutes ago. I wish you luck on your unit exam, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me and let's see if we can get them answered for you. Have a great day.